Chapter 1. The Red Room. It was too rainy to go outside that day. Instead, my cousins Eliza, John, and Georgina Reed stayed warm by the fire. "Jane, you may not join us until you behave yourself. Go sit alone," said my aunt, Miss Reed. I sat in another room quietly reading a book until my older cousin John entered. With a large grin, John hit me in the face. "You have no right to read our books," the 14-year-old bully said as he attacked his 10-year-old cousin. I scratched his face in defense. "Help! Jane is attacking me!" he cried as servants Abbott and Bessie ran into the room. "Miss Eyre, behave yourself! You should be thankful your Aunt Miss Reed takes care of you," Bessie said as she locked me in the red room. I was again alone, wondering why my cousins hated me. Since the death of my parents and my uncle, Mr. Reed, I was bullied by the entire family. Staring out the window, I saw something that looked like a ghost outside the window and began to scream. "Leave her be," Miss Reed said in the other room. "She is just trying to trick us." Chapter 2. Escape. I woke in my own bed with someone trying to help me. Bessie was standing beside me, looking anxious. "Do you know who I am, Jane?" said the doctor, Mr. Lloyd. "Yes," I said. "Bessie, what happened? Am I sick?" I asked. "You fainted while crying in the red room," said Bessie. "You'll be better soon." The next day, I sat by the fire feeling bad as the Reeds were out visiting friends. I refused to eat and read my favorite as Mr. Lloyd came to visit again. "What's wrong, Jane? You've been crying," he said. "I was locked in a room where there was a ghost. I wanted to tell him everything, but I could not." Mr. Lloyd laughed. "You don't believe in ghosts, do you?" "And I have no mother or father," I went on. "If I had anywhere to go, I would leave now." "Would you like to go to school?" he asked. I told him my cousins Eliza, John, and Georgina went to school, but I had never. "I will speak to Miss Reed, and we will see," Mr. Lloyd said. After that day, I was kept even more separate from the others. I had to eat alone, and no one spoke to me. One day, in January, Bessie came in suddenly and rushed me downstairs to meet Miss Reed and a serious-looking man named Mr. Brocklehurst. "This is the bad little girl I told you about," Miss Reed said. "Will you take her to your boarding school?" "Yes, we can teach her how to be good," Mr. Brocklehurst said. "Go upstairs, Jane," Miss Reed said quietly. "Bessie will help you pack your things." I hugged Bessie before a guard picked me up into the carriage and took me away. Chapter 3. Lowood. The journey took all day. By nighttime, the guard and I had reached the countryside. A servant met me outside a large gate and led me into a silent room. After several minutes alone, two ladies walked into the room. "This child is too young to be sent alone," said a kind, elegant lady with dark hair. "She had better go to bed soon, Miss Miller. She looks very tired. Are you tired, Jane?" "A little, ma'am." "Leave her some supper before she goes to bed." "Is this the first time you have been away from home?" she said to her companion. She asked me a few questions. I explained to her that I did not really have a home and was an orphan. I followed Miss Miller through a hallway until we entered a large dining room filled with girls. They were all dressed in brown wool dresses and plain white sleeveless tops. She sat me down at a table and fed me. After reading some prayers, the girls filed upstairs to the dorm, where I went straight to sleep. The next morning, I was placed in the youngest class in the schoolroom. We said prayers and read the Bible for an hour before breakfast. "Silence," said one of the teachers, a short woman with a sour face, before we took our places and began to eat. We were allowed to play games, but only a few girls did. The rest huddled in groups to stay warm. I read a sign, "Lowood Institution. This house was built in 1813 by Naomi Brocklehurst of Brocklehurst Hall." I heard a cough and turned around to see a few girls sharing a book. She handed me the book to look at. "What is this place?" I asked. "A school for orphans like us," she said. "My mother is dead," I told them sadly. "Is the owner the kind-looking dark-haired lady?" "Miss Temple? I wish. She has to answer to Mr. Brocklehurst, a cruel pastor that lives a few miles away." She told me more about the teachers. The short, sour one was Miss Scatcherd. Miss Smith taught sewing, and the older lady was Madame Perrot, the French teacher. Miss Miller was Miss Temple's deputy, and Miss Temple was loved by all. In the afternoon, I saw my older new friend being scolded by Miss Scatcherd. After water and oats for supper, we said prayers and went to bed. My first day at school was over. Chapter 4. Helen Burns. The next day began just like the one before. The weather was even colder, and the wind blew right into our dorm. After a small amount of breakfast, we had another day of school. I was asked questions and had to remember things. After afternoon prayers, we were sent to Miss Smith for sewing, while Miss Scatcherd's students stayed in class and were scolded. "Sit up straight, Burns," I overheard her scream. I saw the girl named Burns take a stick from the cupboard and hand it to Miss Scatcherd. I watched as the teacher hit her hard with the stick. Burns did not flinch throughout her punishment. That evening, I wandered around the tables after dinner. I sat down beside the girl I had seen and asked, "What is your name, besides Burns?" "Helen." "Why is Miss Scatcherd so cruel?" "She's just strict. I have many faults, and she wants to correct them," she said. Just then, one of the older girls came up to us. "Helen Burns, you must put away your books, and put your clothes drawer in order, Miss Scatcherd says." Helen got up without reply, and immediately did what she was told. The next 3 months continued much the same, as I tried to get used to the daily routine. Older girls would often bully the younger ones for food. Sundays were the worst, as we had to walk through the snow to church. One fateful afternoon, I looked up from my lesson to see a tall person walk by the window. 2 minutes later, everyone stood to attention, and Mr. Brocklehurst walked into the classroom. He began by complaining to Miss Temple about the state of our clothing. "Who gave them cheese and bread?" He continued to yell about many things. "And who is this child? Come here," he said to me. He pointed at me and continued, "She serves the devil. She has done many bad things in the past. Stay away from her and discipline her properly." I felt ashamed and was almost in tears as Mr. Brocklehurst left angrily. Miss Temple gave me a smile that gave me enough strength to finish the day. Chapter 5. The Sickness. The end of school bell rang. Instead of leaving the school, I sat on the classroom floor and cried. I was trying so hard to do well, but I had failed. No one would speak to me now. No one would want to know me. As I cried, Helen Burns came to me with bread and milk. "Come on, eat something," she said kindly. Helen was a truly good person, but I sensed a loneliness in her. As I stared at her, she suddenly turned and began to cough. She coughed hard for several minutes, and I put my arms around her. As I hugged her shaking shoulders, someone else came into the deserted schoolroom. It was Miss Temple. "Jane Eyre," she said, "I would like you to visit me. Helen, since you are here, you may come too." We got up and followed her away from the schoolroom, through parts of the building we never saw. We sat in her private apartment. "Do you feel better now, Jane?" she asked. I told her my sad story, and she reassured me that everything was going to be all right. "Well, you girls are my guests tonight, so you will have tea with me," said Miss Temple. We sat and ate cake while discussing favorite books, French lessons, and all the places we would like to visit. Helen told her that she had coughed a lot that day, but the pain in her chest was a little better. A week later, Miss Temple told the entire school that I was a good child and should be treated well. Everyone applauded, and the teachers hugged me. I was able to work harder in class than ever before. Everything was going well as we entered spring. A poor diet and a cold winter, however, left more than half of the school sick with typhus. This disease caused a high fever, loss of appetite, and inability to move. Teachers spent all of their time looking after the sick as lessons were canceled. Gloom hung over the school, as some girls even died. Mr. Brocklehurst was too afraid of the disease to visit. The healthy girls were sent outside, where my friend Marianne and I would have picnics. Helen had become very sick and was near death. Wanting to see Helen, I snuck out of my bed one night. Her face looked very bad. "Jane," she whispered. She could barely speak. I laid next to her in bed and fell asleep comforting her. I woke up the next morning, and Helen was dead. Chapter 6. Growing Up. Once the typhus had done its worst, it began to disappear, but Lowood was not the same. News of the sickness spread to the public. Large donations began to come to the school to keep us warm and well fed. Mr. Brocklehurst spent only a fraction of the school's funds on the students. He spent the rest on himself and his family and was caught. He was not fired, but had to start answering to the government. We moved to a new building, were fed more food, and given proper clothing. Lowood was transformed from a miserable institution to a flourishing school. I stayed there for 8 years and learned many things. At the age of 16, I became an assistant teacher to the younger girls. Miss Temple stayed at Lowood. I owed everything to her. She was a wonderful teacher, but also like a mother to me. I grew up to be calm and sensible like her. When I was 18, Miss Temple met her husband-to-be, Mr. Nasmith. She married him and had to move far away. I could not imagine life without her. I sat down on the bed and cried a little the day she left. Looking out the window at the hilly countryside, I realized that I wanted to be free. I wanted a new life, a new job, and a new place. I placed an advertisement in the newspaper. Young lady with experience looking for a private teaching position. After a week, I checked my mail, and there was a single letter. A woman named Miss Fairfax was looking for a teacher of a single student. I notified the school and asked they provide me strong recommendations. Miss Fairfax wrote back saying she was happy to hire me as a governess at Thornfield Hall. Chapter 7. Thornfield. I was on my way to Thornfield Hall in a slow carriage on a very long journey. We arrived at the gates and a maid was waiting for me. I followed her down a hallway to a small room where a plump, friendly Miss Fairfax sat. "How do you do, my dear?" She was so kind and welcoming. It was as if I were a visitor, not an employee. "I'm so glad you have come. You will meet your student, Adele Varhin, soon." We talked about the family who owned the house, and my heart warmed. After tea and sandwiches, she showed me to my small room in the back of the house. I quickly unpacked my things, prepared for bed, and within minutes I was in a deep sleep. When I awoke, it was daytime, and my room looked very pretty, much unlike Lowood. I felt as if I had entered a completely new life. I didn't have nice clothes, but I could, at least, make myself neat and clean. I stepped outside the front door and looked at the house. It was a grand home built of stone and surrounded by meadows. I could see a little village with a church in the distance. Miss Fairfax appeared at the door. "Up already?" she asked. "How do you like Thornfield?" "It is lovely," I said. "I like it very much." "Yes, it's a good house, but I'm afraid Mr. Rochester needs to make some repairs." "Who is he?" "The homeowner," she said. "The little girl Adele, your student, is the abandoned child of someone he once knew. Here she comes now. Say hello to Miss Eyre, Adele. She is here to teach you." "Bonjour," said Adele. I was happy that I had studied French at Lowood and could understand what Adele was saying. As we went into breakfast, she took my hand and began telling me all about how she had come from France with Mr. Rochester and her nurse in a big ship. She said Mr. Rochester was kind to her, but now he had gone away again. After breakfast, I went with her to the library to begin her lessons. She was a bright child and eager to please, but her mind was always wandering. Miss Fairfax showed me around the house after school. As we neared the attic, I heard a strange, ghost-like sound. "Oh, that is just Grace Poole, one of the servants." Chapter 8. Rochester. I settled easily into life at Thornfield. Everyone was friendly, and I had a comfortable room of my own. I had never been happier, yet I wanted to see what else life had to offer. I would occasionally climb on the roof and gaze into the horizon. I would hear Grace Poole's laughter from below. One day, Adele had a cold and was excused from her lessons. I used the day to walk to the nearby village to send letters for everyone, despite the cold temperature. Just as I was about to start walking, I heard horses approaching. A man on a tall, strong horse and a dog ran past me. Shortly after, I heard a large crash and the man cursing. The horse had slipped on a patch of ice, and I rushed to him. "Are you injured, sir?" I asked. "Can I help?" "Stand aside," the man answered gruffly, while his dog barked. He was limping and was clearly in pain. He was about 35, medium in height, and had broad shoulders. "Where did you come from?" he asked. "From Thornfield," I said, pointing at the house. "The governess!" he said. I wasn't sure how to respond, so I watched as he tried to walk. "I do not need a doctor, but please help me on my horse." "Thank you," he said before calling his dog Pilot and continuing down the road. I couldn't help thinking about the attractive man. I wondered if I would ever meet him again. I walked back to Thornfield and entered Miss Fairfax's office. To my surprise, the dog Pilot was sitting on the rug. "This is Mr. Rochester's dog," Miss Fairfax informed me. "The doctor must have told him to go to bed to rest his foot, because he was nowhere to be seen. I didn't see him the next morning either." The doorbell rang all day as various visitors arrived. Throughout her lessons, Adele could not concentrate due to her urge to see Mr. Rochester. When our lessons were done, I let her run to the library to find him. "Jane," Miss Fairfax said, "Mr. Rochester says he would like you, me, and Adele to have tea with him." After putting on my dress, I joined them in the library. "I can see what good work you have done with Adele," he said. He asked me a long list of questions before excusing us for the night. "Why is he so peculiar?" I asked Miss Fairfax in the hallway. "He's had his troubles," she explained. "His brother died 9 years ago, and he had a falling out with his family. I suppose he thinks this is a gloomy place," she said. I wanted to know more, but something told me I shouldn't ask any more questions. Chapter 9. The Fire. For the next few days, I hardly saw Mr. Rochester. He was busy with visitors or riding his horse. One evening, he asked Miss Fairfax to bring Adele and me to him. Some things had arrived in the mail, and he had a few gifts for Adele.
"Come and sit near me, Miss Eyre."
I watched his soft, kind eyes looked into the fire.
"You're staring at me, Miss Eyre," he said. "Do you think I'm handsome?"
"No, sir," I said with a blush. He seemed to like my passionate and bold nature. He told me I was unlike anyone else he had met. He spoke about how he was trying to be a better person, a comment I found puzzling. Days later, he explained what he had meant. He told me how he had come to care for Adele. It turned out that she was the daughter of a French dancer named Celine Varens. Mr. Rochester had been in love with Celine and bought her everything she ever wanted. Celine ran away to Italy with another man and left Adele behind in Paris.
So here she is, a little French flower transplanted in the English countryside. I like this house, but I hate the thought of—"
He fell silent. As the days passed, he often wanted to honestly talk with me. No longer did I feel isolated, cut off from the world. I had all the intelligent conversation I could wish for, and I thrived on it. I often laid in bed thinking about him. Late one night, I heard something that woke me. "Who's there?" I called. Could it be Grace Poole? I got up to see who it was. Surprisingly, a lit candle lay outside my room, and the hallway was full of smoke. The fire was coming from Mr. Rochester's room as he slept. "Wake up!" I shouted, but he did not move. I grabbed the water basin and threw it on the curtains and blankets. Mr. Rochester, covered in cold water, woke up with a gasp.
"Is there a flood?"
he shouted.
"What happened? Who did this?"
I told him everything I saw.
"You said you heard a laugh," he asked.
"Yes, I believe it is Grace Poole, sir, one of the servants. She laughs that way."
"Thank you. You saved my life."
He reached out and took my hand and held it. "Good night again, sir." But he would not let my hand go.
"I knew as soon as I saw you that you would do me good in some way."
He stared at me intensely. Back in my bed, I could not sleep as feelings of joy and terror raced through my head. Chapter 10. Blanche Ingram. The next day, I heard Miss Fairfax and the servants talking about the fire as if it was an accident. "What a blessing he was not burned!" they exclaimed. "It is always dangerous to keep a candle lit at night," they continued. I walked into Mr. Rochester's room, and Grace Poole was sewing new curtains for the room. How could she still be here, after what she had done last night? "Good morning, Grace," I said. "What happened here?" "Last night the master fell asleep with his candle lit, and the curtains caught fire, but he woke and quenched the flames with the water jug," she said with a stone face. "Did you hear anything, dear?" "I heard a bit of laughter," I said. "Perhaps you were dreaming." For the rest of the day, I thought about this mystery. Why did Grace try to murder Mr. Rochester? Why did he choose to cover up the crime? I asked Miss Fairfax where he was. "He is off to a friend's party and will be gone for several days," Miss Fairfax replied. "He is very popular, especially with the ladies." I felt a weakness in my heart. "Are there ladies at this party?" I asked. "Of course. Miss Eshton and her 3 daughters, Maria and Blanche Ingram. Blanche is the most beautiful of them all." "What is she like?" "Tall and gorgeous, with thick black hair. She and Mr. Rochester sang together at the last party." Alone in my room, I was angry at myself for ever thinking Mr. Rochester ever liked me. The beautiful Blanche Ingram was of his own social class. He would never choose me. I suppressed my feelings for him. Miss Fairfax announced, "The master's coming back on Thursday, and he's bringing his friends with him." We spent the next 3 days preparing the house. I overheard the servants speaking about Grace Poole's generous salary. The day of the party finally came, and Mr. Rochester rode towards the house with a beautiful lady behind him. "Miss Ingram," Miss Fairfax said as she greeted the guest. After dinner, we greeted the guests, who mostly ignored us. I sat in a dark corner, trying to get a good look at the most beautiful woman in the room, Blanche. I could overhear her and Mr. Rochester talking. "I thought you didn't care for children," she joked. "I don't, not really," he replied. "Then why do you keep that little thing?" she said rudely, pointing at Adele. Blanche sat down at the piano and began to play. I was just about to leave until Mr. Rochester began to sing. His deep voice was beautiful. I stayed to listen until the end of the song and left. Someone, however, had followed me. It was Mr. Rochester. "Jane, how are you?" he said. "Why did you not come and talk to me?" "Nothing is wrong," I said as I felt tears in my eyes. "Jane, I want you to join us tomorrow night, and every night after that." Chapter 11. The Gypsy. Thornfield was no longer empty and quiet. No, it was full of life. The guests spent their time talking and playing games throughout the house. Blanche Ingram commonly flirted with Mr. Rochester each day. I loved Mr. Rochester, and I could not stop my feelings because another woman was attracted to him. I saw her coldness as she was short with Adele, said hurtful comments, and shot bad looks at others. I think Mr. Rochester saw all this too, as he watched her as carefully as I did. It was clear he didn't love her. Their relationship seemed to be just for appearance. That was what wealthy people did. It was a rainy day. Mr. Rochester was away as a carriage pulled up outside. A man named Mr. Mason stepped out and spoke. "I'm sorry to arrive when Mr. Rochester is gone," I heard him tell Miss Fairfax. "But I have had a long journey and must wait here until he returns." Mr. Mason joined us in the drawing room and told us about living with Mr. Rochester in the West Indies. A servant entered suddenly to tell us an old gypsy had come to the house. Blanche invited her in to hear her fortune. Blanche left the room for a fortune-telling and came back annoyed. After several fortunes, the gypsy refused to leave until she gave a fortune to the remaining unmarried woman in the room. Miss Eyre, she must mean you. I sat next to the gypsy, and she began. You can have the happiness you seek. It's waiting, but you must make it for yourself. What would you like to know? Is Mr. Rochester to be married? I asked. Ah, yes, she said excitedly, to the beautiful Miss Ingram. But he doesn't have as much money as she thought. I told her that an hour ago, and her face fell. If she finds a richer man, she will leave him. And what about me? I said. She looked at me closely. A mouth that speaks what the brain thinks, but hides what the heart feels. Whatever passions may burn within you, good judgment shall always have the last word. She was silent for a moment. Do you think I should get married, Jane? The gypsy's voice got deeper, and she pulled off the scarfs over her face. It was really Mr. Rochester. Forgive me, Jane, he said. I just wanted to know what the others think. I had better go, I said, suddenly ashamed. I must go help with dinner, and Mr. Mason is waiting. Mr. Mason? Send him to me immediately. Late that night, I was awoken by strange noises and voices. Rochester! For God's sake, come! I heard Mr. Rochester's door opening, and his footsteps running up to the attic. From above, there was a thud, and then silence. The hallway was filled with confused guests. Mr. Rochester walked down from the attic. Don't panic. A servant has had a nightmare. Please, go back to bed. I went back to my room as a hand tapped gently at my door. Mr. Rochester asked me quietly to bring a basin of water to the attic where Grace Poole lived. There lay Mr. Mason, covered in blood. Help him while we fetch the doctor, Mr. Rochester said. There are tooth marks here, said the doctor once he arrived. She bit me, Mason gasped. Within half an hour, the doctor was gone. The visitors got into a carriage and left before the sun came up. After the last guest was gone, Mr. Rochester and I stood alone in front of the house. Don't worry about Grace Poole, he said. Spend some time with me the night before I get married. Chapter 12. Gateshead Hall. The next afternoon, a man dressed in black knocked on the door. My name is Robert Levin, Miss Eyre. I married Bessie, who worked for the Reeds, he said. I gasped. How is Bessie? Bessie is very well, thank you. We have 3 children together. And how is the Reed family? Not too good. John drank and gambled all his money away and died a week ago. He killed himself. Hearing the news, his mother, Miss Reed, had a stroke and is near death. She would like to see you. I asked Mr. Rochester for a week off to see Miss Reed during her final days. I reminded him that if he married Blanche, then Adele would be pushed away. I told him that if that happened, then I would need to start looking for another job.
"I will find you a new position," he said.
After 2 days in a carriage, I arrived at the place I once called home. "Bless you, Jane! I knew you would come," Bessie said with a baby in her arms. "Is Miss Reed still alive?" I said sadly. I realized the last time I had been here, 9 years ago, Bessie was walking me to the carriage that took me to Lowood. I had been angry then, and still sensed misery looking at the windows. I hardly recognized Georgina and Eliza Reed. Eliza was tall and thin, a cross around her neck and a serious expression on her face. Georgina had grown plump, but kept her curly blonde hair and blue eyes. They both wore black. Both girls denied me from seeing Miss Reed, so I used Bessie to get me through the doors. I felt pity for Miss Reed, despite her ill treatment of me in the past. "Jane Eyre," she said quietly. "Yes, Aunt," I said, and took her hand, but she pulled it away. "Why did you hate me so much?" I asked gently. "I hated your mother, my husband's only sister. He put his sister before me, his own wife. He was a weak man. Not like my son John. No." "She's rambling. We better leave," Bessie said. Several days later, I decided to go up to Miss Reed's room on my own, to see if she was well enough to talk to me again. "Aunt Reed," I called, pushing open her door. "Jane Eyre, please come in. I am very ill and must tell you something. Get the letter from my drawer and read it." The letter was 3 years old and was from my uncle John Eyre Madeira. The letter told his intention of passing his fortune on to me once he died. "Miss Reed," I said calmly, although my heart was pounding, "this letter is 3 years old. Why did you not send it to me?" "Because I hated you. I told him you had died at Lowood, of the sickness. You may write to him now," she groaned. Miss Reed was dead the next morning. After the funeral, I returned to Thornfield.
"There you are! Where have you been all this time?" Mr. Rochester said. "I thought you forgot us."
"Thank you, sir. I feel wherever you are will be my true home," I said before quickly leaving. Chapter 13. A Proposal. It was in the middle of the summer, and I was walking outside. Mr. Rochester joined me.
"I found you a job in Ireland, but if you go, then you will never see me again," he said.
I burst into tears.
"Perhaps you should not leave. I have a strange feeling about you, Jane."
"I will never forget you. Thank you for the comfort and companionship," I said. Before I could run away, he pulled me closer and kissed me.
"Don't leave," he said. "Stay, Jane. Stay with me. I will have no bride but you. Jane, I am not going to marry Miss Ingram. I love you, Jane. Please marry me."
"Yes, Edward, I will marry you." We kissed as it began raining. The next morning, Adele came into my room to tell me a large tree had been struck by lightning. Was I really to be married? I couldn't believe it.
"You look truly pretty today,"
he said outside as he hugged and kissed me. I knew it was true.
"Just a month from today,"
he said into my ear,
"you will become Miss Jane Rochester."
He began speaking of the beautiful things he was soon to buy me. "Please, stop talking like this. I will not be myself with all these things," I said. We would be married in 4 weeks before traveling to France and Italy for a honeymoon. I just want your love and honesty. Later that day, Miss Fairfax and I went shopping for the wedding. She expressed her doubt. "Is this a good idea? You are not of the same class, and he is much older than you," she said. Suddenly, I remembered my uncle's letter. If I had my own wealth, then we would be in the same class. As the wedding day neared, I had a terrible dream about old Thornfield wasting away. I woke to a lit candle on my dresser. I heard a noise from the closet and saw a woman walking towards my wedding gown. The woman turned to me with a scary expression as she tore my wedding veil into 2. I passed out in fear. When I awoke, it was daytime. I was sure it was only a dream, but the veil lay on the floor in 2 pieces. I had no one to tell. Mr. Rochester was out of town, and nobody else would believe me. When at last he came back, I told him everything.
"I am afraid the only explanation can be that it really was Grace Poole. You are wondering why I keep her here, and one day I will tell you."
Chapter 14. The Wedding Day. In the morning, a servant helped me to dress for my wedding, and we went to the nearby church. It was a small ceremony with only a few people watching. We held hands in front as the service began. He announced that we were here to be married unless there was any objection. A voice in the back exclaimed, "I object! This marriage cannot take place."
"What is the problem?" the priest asked the individual standing in the darkness.
"Mr. Rochester is already married," he said. His words sliced through me like a knife blade.
"Who are you?"
Mr. Rochester said as he pulled me closer.
"I am Mr. Briggs, a lawyer from London. You have a wife, don't you?"
He read a form detailing the marriage of Edward Fairfax Rochester to Bertha Antoinette Mason 15 years ago in Jamaica. A second person stepped out of the shadows, Mr. Mason.
"It is true. She lives at Thornfield Hall. I saw her there. I am her brother," he said. "He keeps her hidden in the attic."
Mr. Rochester was in pieces.
"There will be no wedding today. I already have a wife, if you can call her that. My father forced me to marry 15 years ago. She is a wild, drunken monster. If you don't believe me, then you can see for yourself."
The priest and the wedding attendants followed us to the attic where I had cared for Mr. Mason's wounded arm. Mr. Rochester revealed a hidden door and opened it and led us inside. Grace Poole was cooking as a strange creature moved around on all fours. The creature pulled the hair away from its face. It was the strange woman who had come into my room. She let out the familiar, loud, crazy laugh. "Meet my wife, Bertha," Mr. Rochester said. "This is her. This is all I have for a companion. Now leave us while I attend to this matter."
Mr. Briggs spoke to me as the others left the attic. "This is not your fault, Jane. Your uncle is a friend of mine in London and sent me to stop the wedding. He is very sick now, and you must wait to hear from him." I went to my room to think about my future. Everything had changed in an instant. I cried all afternoon until I came out. Mr. Rochester was sitting outside.
"I never meant to hurt you, Jane. I love you. Don't you still love me?"
"Of course," I whispered, tears filling my eyes. "But I cannot stay with you while you have a wife." I went to my room for my things and snuck out of the house. I cried as I gave a driver all the money I had to take me far away from Thornfield. Chapter 15. The Runaway. The coach drove all day until I was completely out of money to pay him. I got out at a small crossroads named Whitecross. The nearest town was 10 miles away, so I had to sleep outside. I gathered some berries and drank water from a stream before sleeping in a makeshift bed. I fell to sleep with thoughts of Mr. Rochester in my head. When I awoke, I realized where I was. I got up and started walking. For miles, I did not see a single house or person until I heard church bells in the distance. I walked towards the sound and found a small community. Hungry now, and without money, I stopped at a bakery. "Good afternoon, miss," said the woman behind the counter cheerily. "May I sit here? It is very hot out there." After a moment, I asked if she knew of any available work in town, but she did not. I walked door to door, but nobody wanted to help me. Hungrier than ever, I begged a stranger for a piece of his bread and wandered the streets. The sky was getting darker, and it started to rain. With no shelter, I continued to walk until I saw a home with a glowing light. I knocked at the door. "What do you want?" she said. "Please, ma'am, I need shelter and something to eat," I begged. "You can't stay here. The owner of the house is coming back soon," she said, slamming the door. "Please, I will die if I stay out here." I fell to the ground. A tall man came up behind me and lifted me to my feet.
"I believe this young lady is in true need," he told the woman as she opened the door for him.
Soon I was sitting in front of the fire, surrounded by 4 strangers. I was weak, exhausted, wet, and crying. "I am Diana Rivers," she said. "This is my brother, St. John, and my sister, Mary. What is your name?" "It is Jane," I said. "Jane Elliot." "Are you lost? Can we send for your family or friends?" asked St. John. "There is no one," I said, before I was fed and given a bed. Chapter 16. A New Life. I was very sick and spent 3 days in bed. The 2 sisters often came in to sit with me.
I wonder what happened to her and how she ended up here, they said. On the fourth day, I wandered downstairs and found them cooking. Although our first meeting had not gone well, she smiled at me now. She told me that old Mr. Rivers, the father of Diana, Mary, and St. John, had recently died. Before we ate, I thanked them all heartily for their kindness. "As soon as you are ready," said St. John, "you can tell us where you live, and we'll take you home." "I'm afraid I cannot. I have no home." After getting to know me and learning my experience, St. John recommended me for a position at a school opening in the village. Over the next weeks, I talked with Diana and Mary as if I had known them all my life. It was easy to sit and talk with them for hours. One day, St. John returned home with a letter in his hand. "Uncle John is dead," he said. "He has left his whole fortune to another relative." Diana said to me, "Jane, you may think we are heartless, but we never knew him. He was our mother's brother, and after she died, he argued with our father and went abroad. Our father hoped that our uncle would leave us some of his money. You see, we are disappointed." A few weeks later, I started my new life as Miss Elliot, the new school teacher. It was a simple life in the village where I could stay warm, safe, and happy. Every moment, however, I thought of Mr. Rochester. The months passed. I enjoyed my time away from school painting and drawing. One day, St. John knocked and entered my home. "I see you sign your work like any good artist," he said. "But it is not signed Jane Elliot, is it?" Ashamed, my heart began to beat quickly. "St. John, I'm so sorry for lying." "No need, Miss Eyre. I am sure you had your reasons. I am interested in the fact that you are Miss Jane Eyre, formerly of Gateshead Hall and Thornfield Hall." "How did you know?" I gasped. "It is all in my late uncle's will," he said. "My uncle John Eyre of Madeira. Our uncle on our mother's side, and yours on your father's side," he said. "And you, Jane, are the poor orphan to whom he left his fortune." "And you, Diana and Mary, are my cousins?" "It seems so," St. John said with a smile. "You have inherited 20,000 pounds. You are a rich lady now." Chapter 17. A Rich Lady. 20,000 pounds! It was more money than I could possibly imagine. More importantly, I had a real family with my dear Diana, Mary, and St. John. I split the inheritance between John Eyre's 4 relatives. We would have 5,000 pounds each. Wanting to see the world, I told the school I would remain working until Christmas. I left them a gift of money the day I quit. I enjoyed the happiest Christmas I had ever known with my cousins. I began a life of leisure, studying, painting, and planning my travels. St. John had plans to move to India with the church and asked me to help him learn the language. As the days went by, I could not help thinking of Mr. Rochester. I wrote Miss Fairfax, but did not receive a reply. Alarmed, I wrote again. Again, I heard nothing. As the weeks went by, I became more anxious. One day, during my lessons with St. John,
I broke down crying. We went outside to talk. "Jane, you must come with me to India to be my companion and my assistant." "I cannot, St. John. I do not want to go to India," I said quickly. As much as I loved St. John, I could not stop thinking about Mr. Rochester. I ran away from St. John as he persisted I move with him. Chapter 18. Miss Rochester. That night, I told my cousins I had to visit a friend. I awoke early the next morning and packed my bag. As I left my room, I found a note slipped under my door. It read, "Jane, I will wait to hear your final decision when you return. In the meantime, I will pray for you. Yours ever, St. John Rivers." It had been a year since I left Thornfield. Who could have guessed things would turn out as they had, and that I would be so much happier? I wanted to see Mr. Rochester, however, so I left my new home. When I arrived, Thornfield Hall was empty and in ruin. It was clearly destroyed by a fire. I ran back to the small village near Thornfield and asked the locals what had happened. The news they told me was truly tragic. "I'm afraid the house has been burned to the ground, miss. Such a shame. They say Mr. Rochester fell in love with a governess named Jane, but was keeping his crazy wife in the attic. The wife would steal the keys from Sleeping Gray's pool and would wander the house, causing trouble. One night she took a candle and lit the governess's old bed on fire. She was dancing around the flames as the house burned. Thankfully, the governess had gone by then." I shuddered as the story continued. Mr. Rochester ran through the house, saving his servants from the fire. As he was coming down the staircase, he fell in the fire and burned himself badly. Today, he is blind and living 20 miles away in Ferndean. I took a carriage there immediately. I knocked on the door, and a servant led me to Mr. Rochester. Pilot the dog got up and came to me, wagging his tail. "Down! Pilot, who is it?" he said. My heart melted to hear his voice again. He turned around, and I saw his face was badly scarred. "Who is that? Who is there?" "Pilot knows who I am," I said, smiling. "It cannot be!" he exclaimed as he put out his hands. "It is me, Edward. It is really me." My eyes were full of tears. "I never will run away again," I cried. "I will never leave you." We were reunited. I told him where I had been, how I found my family, and that I was independently wealthy. "I have missed you, Jane, and now we can get married." "It is you I want," I said. "You are what pleases me. Jane, will you marry me?" Since that day, we have been married for 10 years. They have been the happiest years of my life. We live in Ferndean with our servants, and Adele is at a nearby school. We have 2 children of our own. 2 years after we were married, Edward was writing a letter when suddenly he leaned forward and said, "Jane, are you wearing a blue dress? And do you have a golden pendant around your neck?" One of his eyes had started to work again. We went to London to visit an eye doctor, and Edward regained his sight in one eye. When his firstborn child was put into his arms, he could look at his little son.
My cousins, Mary and Diana, married as well. Both led happy lives. St. John went to India alone after all. He wrote to us a year later, saying that he was suffering from a fever and thought he might die. After that, we never heard from him again.